All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Orthodox Christian communion.
Okay.
And we've got a really fascinating article here
Okay.
from the Orthodox Christian Tools blog. It's called, "What Does Communion Mean to Orthodox Christians?" Now, even if you're familiar with communion in general, like from other Christian traditions,
Yeah.
the Orthodox tradition really has some unique and deep layers to it
Right.
that I think are really worth exploring.
I think so too.
So one of the things that really stood out to me in this article
Okay.
was how they view communion as like a reenactment of the Last Supper.
Mm-hmm.
Not just, remembering it or symbolically representing it, but like
Yeah.
actually, in a sense, reliving it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on the implications of that belief for Orthodox Christians?
Well, you know, I think it's a really foundational belief for them.
Yeah.
And it really shapes their whole experience of communion in a really profound way.
I can imagine.
Because imagine if you were actually present at that moment in history,
Right.
witnessing Christ offering himself, for the salvation of humanity.
Yeah.
Just like they're bringing that level of immediacy and connection to the ritual.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's a powerful way to frame it.
Yeah.
The article also mentions this idea of receiving the bread and wine as the actual body and blood of Christ.
Right.
This idea of like mystical participation
Yes.
might be a bit challenging for some people to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
Can you shed some light on what that means in the context of Orthodox belief?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So for Orthodox Christians, communion isn't just about remembering an event or receiving symbols.
Okay.
It's about like a direct mystical union with Christ.
Right.
This concept of mystical participation,
Mm-hmm.
suggests that through faith, we can actually transcend the limitations of the physical world
Mm-hmm.
and experience the divine in like a tangible, transformative way.
Wow, that makes me think about theosis, which is like this core concept in Orthodox Christianity, this
Right.
idea of becoming more like God.
Exactly.
So does this mystical participation in communion like play a role in that process?
Absolutely. I think it's a vital part of theosis.
Okay.
Theosis is often described as this journey of spiritual growth and transformation
Right.
with the ultimate aim of union with God.
Mm-hmm.
And communion, with its emphasis on mystical participation, is seen as like a key step on that path.
Yeah.
By receiving the Eucharist,
Hmm.
believers are believed to be drawing closer to God
Okay.
and taking in a part of his divine essence.
So it's not just like a one-time event, but something that shapes their ongoing spiritual journey.
Exactly. Every instance of communion is like another step towards theosis,
Okay.
a deepening of that connection with the divine.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder of the transformative nature of faith and that ultimate goal of unity with God.
And there's also this really strong emphasis on community
Yeah.
in Orthodox Christianity, and that really comes through in how they view communion.
Absolutely.
The article highlights how it strengthens the bonds between believers.
Right.
So it's not just about an individual's connection with God, but also this collective experience.
Yeah, it's a shared experience.
What do you think is the significance of that communal aspect?
Well, I think that shared experience adds a really powerful dimension to communion.
Yeah.
Just imagine participating in this really deeply personal act of faith
Right.
alongside your entire community.
Wow.
It really reinforces that sense of unity,
Yeah.
that we're all members of the body of Christ.
It's like this beautiful paradox, right? It's
Yeah.
this deeply personal experience of union with God,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it binds you closer to your community.
Exactly. That interconnectedness is something that the Orthodox Church really emphasizes
Mhm.
in many aspects of its faith.
Yeah.
It's really central to their worldview.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Hashtag TTS, the deep dive episode 2025-03-06. It's interesting how that communal aspect, ties into this idea of remembrance too.
Oh, yeah?
It's not just about connecting with Christ,
Yeah.
like in the present moment, but also keeping his sacrifice alive, in our hearts and minds as believers.
Yeah, the article really emphasizes that.
It does.
It even calls this remembrance a living, breathing reality.
Wow.
It's a pretty powerful image.
It is.
It suggests that Christ's sacrifice, it's not just some historical event that happened way back when,
Right.
but something that continues to impact, the lives of believers today.
Absolutely. I think that's a really key point.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that Christ's love and sacrifice, aren't confined to a particular moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
They're eternally present, shaping and informing the lives of those who believe.
So with all of this in mind,
Okay.
the reenactment, this mystical participation,
Right.
the communal aspect, and this ongoing remembrance,
Yeah.
what would you say, like ultimately, what does this article tell us about why communion is so vital to Orthodox Christians?
Well, I think it really comes down to the fact that communion for them isn't just some symbolic ritual.
Okay.
It's a deeply transformative experience that touches every part of their faith and their lives.
Yeah.
It's a way to draw closer to God,
Okay.
to connect with their fellow believers,
Right.
and to keep Christ's sacrifice alive in their hearts.
Reading this article, I couldn't help but think about people who might not be familiar with Orthodox Christianity.
Right.
There's this one line in the article that stood out to me.
Okay.
It describes communion as a sacred invitation. So what do you think that invitation might be?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think that invitation is multifaceted.
Okay.
On one level, it's an invitation to experience the divine, to move beyond the limitations of our earthly existence and connect with something greater than ourselves.
And that kind of connects back to what we were talking about earlier with theosis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Communion offers like a glimpse of that divine unity,
Yeah.
a taste of what it means to be in communion with the source of all love and life.
Right. But the invitation goes beyond just the individual, too.
Yeah, you're right. It's also an invitation to join a community, to become part of something bigger than ourselves,
Yeah.
to share in the joys and sorrows of our fellow believers,
Okay.
to support each other, on our journey towards spiritual growth, and to work together to really embody Christ's love in the world.
So it's not just about receiving, but also about giving,
Exactly.
about participating in something larger than ourselves.
Yes. And that brings us to another really important part of this invitation,
Okay.
the call to service.
Right.
Communion is a constant reminder of Christ's ultimate sacrifice for humanity.
Yeah, the article really emphasizes that.
Yeah.
It's not just about receiving grace and blessings,
Right.
but also about living out Christ's love in our own actions.
Exactly. Communion invites us to follow Christ's example
Okay.
by dedicating our lives to serving others, to become vessels of his love and compassion in the world.
It's really amazing how this act of sharing bread and wine can be so simple, yet hold so much meaning and depth.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the enduring power of ritual and tradition.
Right.
These outward expressions of our faith, they can have such a profound impact on our inner lives,
Yeah.
shaping our beliefs,
Yeah.
our values, and our actions in the world.
Absolutely. Hashtag TTS, the deep dive episode 2025-0306, part 3 of 3.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how, something so simple can hold so much meaning.
Right.
As we've been talking about this whole idea of communion as a sacred invitation, I've been thinking a lot about the transformative power of ritual in general.
Yeah.
We touched on theosis.
Right.
But are there any other examples that come to mind of how these repeated actions, these traditions can shape how we understand ourselves in the world?
Oh, absolutely. Rituals across so many cultures and traditions,
Yeah.
they act as like a bridge between the ordinary and the sacred.
Okay.
They help us step outside our everyday routines and connect with something deeper.
I see what you mean. Think about those big rituals of passage,
Okay.
weddings, funerals.
Right.
They mark these really significant moments
Yeah.
and help us make sense of those transitions.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like these rituals give us a framework for navigating life
Makes
and
them-
finding meaning in it all.
Yeah.
Makes me think about the role of repetition, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like in spiritual practices, whether it's prayer or meditation,
Right.
or even something like communion.
Yeah.
It's like these repeated acts can really shape our thoughts
Absolutely.
and even our emotions over time.
It's like they rewire our brains,
Wow.
They create these new neural pathways and reinforce certain patterns of thinking and feeling.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And for communion specifically,
Okay.
that repetition really reinforces the core beliefs of Orthodox Christianity. Every time a believer participates, they're reaffirming their commitment to Christ,
Right.
to their community, and to theosis.
So it's not just about that one individual experience in the moment, but also about the lasting impact of these rituals.
Exactly. The cumulative effect over a lifetime.
Makes you wonder if someone outside the Orthodox faith were to witness a communion service,
Yeah.
what parts of it would resonate with them, even without, that deeper theological understanding?
I think that sense of reverence would be really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The chanting, the incense, the visual beauty of the icons and vestments.
Yeah, yeah.
All of that creates such a unique atmosphere.
It's like stepping into a different world.
Exactly, sacred space.
And even the simple act of sharing bread and wine,
Right.
regardless of your beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
it speaks to that shared human
I
experience,
believe
our
that.
need for nourishment and connection.
Yeah, it reminds us that even with all our differences, we're all connected on a fundamental level.
And maybe that's part of what makes communion so beautiful.
Yeah,
It offers us a glimpse of that deeper unity,
exactly.
both with the divine and with each other.
Well said.
So it sounds like the invitation of communion, as we've been discussing,
Mm-hmm.
is really an invitation to open ourselves up
Yeah.
to the possibility of connection.
To transformation,
Yeah.
to service.
It's been such an insightful dive into Orthodox Christian communion.
It has.
Thank you so much for joining me on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And for everyone listening out there,
Yeah.
we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity
I hope so.
and inspired you to learn even more about the rich tapestry of faith and ritual in our world.
Me too.
Thanks for being here.